Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something called microservices. Now, if you work in tech, you've probably heard the term thrown around. Maybe even if you don't. It sounds kind of technical, right?
Hmm.
But it's actually fundamental to how, well, pretty much every app you use works so smoothly. So our goal today, cut through the jargon, give you a real shortcut to understanding this really key concept, might even uncover a few surprises.
Exactly. We're going to sort of pull back the curtain a bit, show you how the big players think streaming services, massive online stores, how they actually manage these incredibly complex apps that are changing like all the time.
Mm.
You'll get a sense of how they keep everything ticking, even with millions, literally millions of users hitting them constantly.
Okay, so microservices. Let's unpack that. For anyone who needs a quick refresher or maybe hasn't dug into it before, what are microservices really at the core?
Right. So at its heart, microservices is basically an approach, a way to build software. Instead of building one huge single program, you break the application down into lots of small independent pieces. We call these pieces services.
Yeah, okay, services. Makes sense.
And each one is designed to do just one specific thing and critically do it really well. So think about like handling user logins. That's one job. Or processing payments. Or maybe managing product listings in a store. Each could be its own service.
Hmm.
I sometimes use the restaurant kitchen analogy. It seems to click for people.
Oh, yeah. How's that work?
Well, you don't have one single chef doing absolutely everything, right? The appetizers, the main course, the dessert, all at once.
No, that would be chaos.
Exactly. Instead, you have specialized stations, different chefs. One does the starters, another the mains, a third handles desserts. They work independently, focusing on their specific task, but together they deliver the whole meal.
Ah, I see. So each microservice is like a specialized chef.
Precisely. Each one runs on its own, more or less.
Hmm.
It talks to other services when it needs to, maybe passing an order along. And crucially, you can update one chef's station,
Hmm.
maybe change a recipe without shutting down the entire kitchen.
Okay, that makes it really clear. So if we take like a music streaming app,
Mm-hmm.
you might have one microservice just handling the actual song playback. Another one manages your playlists. And maybe a totally separate one figures out those recommendations it gives you.
You got it. That's exactly the idea. That modularity, that separation is the key.
And that's why big companies like, Netflix, Amazon, Spotify, why they find this so useful for building and maintaining the massive platform.
Absolutely. It makes building, changing, and scaling those huge applications way more manageable.
Right. So, okay, it makes things manageable. But let's dig into the why a bit more. What were the really big drivers, the compelling business reasons that pushed companies towards this? It must be more than just neat organization.
Oh, definitely. It's way more than just technical tidiness. It really boils down to business agility, speed, flexibility. The main reason companies adopt microservices is that they make developing software faster, more flexible, and honestly just easier to handle, especially when you're dealing with large apps or apps that are growing really quickly.
Okay, faster, more flexible. Can you break down those benefits a bit more?
Sure. Let's look at the core advantages.
Yeah.
First up, flexibility, big one.
Mhm.
Because each service is separate, your developers can update or, say, fix a bug in just one part, like the payment system you mentioned, without messing with anything else.
Ah, so you don't have to redeploy the entire application for one small change.
Exactly. You just update that one service.
Right.
That hugely reduces the risk of, breaking the whole thing.
Okay, that's a big deal. What else?
Then there's scalability, efficient scalability. Let's say one part of your app suddenly gets slammed with traffic.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone starts streaming a particular show.
Right.
With microservices, you can add more resources, more servers, more power just to that specific service. The video streaming one.
Without having to boost power for, like, the user profile part that isn't busy?
Precisely. You scale only what needs scaling. That saves a lot of money in computing power. It's much more efficient.
Makes sense.
And that leads to team independence.
Mm-hmm.
Different teams can work on different services at the same time. They're not constantly bumping into each other in the same code base. One team improves search, another works on profiles.
Mm-hmm.
They can move in parallel, much faster,
Less stepping on toes.
way less. And finally, there's technology freedom. This one's interesting. Each service can actually be built using different tools, different programming languages, whatever is genuinely the best fit for that specific job.
Really? So you're not locked into one single technology for the entire application?
Not at all. Your payment service might use Java, while your recommendation engine uses Python because it's great for machine learning. Teams pick the best tool for their specific task.
Wow, okay. So summing that up, it sounds like microservices really empower companies to build these big apps that can grow, adapt quickly, and handle tons of users much more effectively and more reliably, too, it seems.
That's the core of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Efficiency, resilience, speed.
But to really appreciate the shift, like how big a deal it was, we kind of need to understand what came before, right? How things used to be done. And that brings us to the the monolith? Is that
Yeah,
the term?
that's the one, the monolith. Before microservices became widespread, yeah, most software was built as a monolith.
Okay, so what exactly is a monolith in this context?
Imagine just one single enormous application. All the features, everything the app does is tangled together in one giant block of code.
One huge code base.
Yep. Think of it like a single, really complex machine. Everything's bolted together, user login, the product catalog, the checkout system for an online store. It's all part of this one single unit.
And if you wanted to change something small,
That's where it got tricky. Often, you'd have to understand, modify, and then retest the entire system, even for a minor tweak. All the features shared the same code, usually the same database, ran on the same servers. Updates meant redeploying the whole
the
thing.
entire application every time.
Every single time. And scaling. If you got more users, you had to duplicate the entire app, even if only one tiny feature, like, say, the search bar, was the bit getting hammered with traffic.
So you're scaling everything, even the
Yeah.
parts that don't need it.
Exactly. It's like needing to replace your entire car engine just because one spark plug is faulty,
You know?
inefficient, right?
Yeah, definitely sounds it. Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about an e-commerce website from the, say, early 2000s.
Yeah.
It was probably one massive program handling everything, showing products, managing carts, processing payments, user accounts, the whole 9 yards. If you wanted to make a tiny change, maybe update a link on the payment confirmation page,
Yeah.
you might have had to test and then redeploy the entire website,
Yeah.
which could take ages and was pretty risky.
Wow, okay, I'm starting to see the picture. Monoliths. Maybe simpler for really small things initially, but they sound like they became incredibly rigid and, frankly, a nightmare to manage as applications got bigger and more complex.
That's exactly it. They just didn't scale well process-wise or technology-wise.
So this is where it gets really interesting for me. What were the specific breaking points? The real headaches and bottlenecks that monoliths cause that, force people to look for something new. What problems were microservices designed to solve?
Right. This is the crux of it. Monoliths created some really significant challenges, especially as companies grew and needed to move faster. One of the biggest was just slow development cycles. Like we said, a small change could mean updating and testing the whole app. Development just crawled.
Which kills innovation, right?
Absolutely. It puts the brakes on releasing new features or responding to market changes quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were those scaling inefficiencies we touched on. Scaling the whole monolith when only one part needed it. Super wasteful. Burns through resources and money. Plus, you got team bottlenecks. Imagine dozens or even hundreds of developers all trying to work on the same massive code base.
Yeah, sounds like chaos. Merge conflicts, waiting for others.
Total nightmare. Lots of waiting, lots of conflicts. It just slowed everything down. And maybe the most critical one, high-risk updates. A tiny mistake, a small bug introduced in one corner of the monolith.
Could bring the whole thing down.
Potentially, yes. It could crash the entire application, leading to major downtime, affecting all users. The blast radius was huge.
Yikes.
And lastly, technology lock-in. Monoliths were usually built with one main programming language or framework. So if a great new tool came along that was perfect for, say, image processing, it was really hard to adopt it. You were kind of stuck with your original choices.
So all these problems combined, it made it tough for companies to innovate fast, handle lots of users reliably, or just keep their apps stable.
Precisely. It became a real barrier to growth and agility for many companies,
Yeah.
especially in the fast-moving tech world.
Okay, we've laid out the problems pretty clearly. The big question now is, how did microservices step in as the solution? How do they directly tackle each of those monolithic headaches you just described?
Right. So microservices provide a direct answer to basically all of those issues, thanks to that core idea of breaking things into small, independent pieces. Let's go through them. For faster development. Because services are separate, different teams can work on different services at the same time without blocking each other.
Like the payment team and the search team moving in parallel.
Exactly. No more waiting. Development speed increases dramatically. Then, efficient scaling. We talked about this. You scale only the services that actually need it. Recommendation engine getting hammered, add servers just for that, saves resources, saves money. Much smarter.
Got it.
and that leads to reduced risk. This is huge. If one microservice has a bug or
It
fails,
doesn't take everything else down with it.
generally no. The failure is contained. A bug in the payment service shouldn't crash the product catalog or stop users from logging in. It limits the damage.
Okay, containment. That's powerful.
Very. Then there's team autonomy. Small teams can truly own their specific service or set of services. They make decisions faster, they understand their piece deeply, and there's much less need for complex coordination across the whole organization.
More ownership, faster decisions.
Yep. And finally, that flexible technology point, because each service is independent.
They really can use different tech stacks.
They absolutely can. A data crunching service might use a specialized database, perfect for analytics. A service needing speed, like login, might use a super lightweight, fast framework. Use the right tool for the job everywhere.
Let's bring back that Netflix example. How does this play out for them day to day?
Well, think about it. They have hundreds, maybe thousands of microservices, one for streaming video, one for user profiles, one for billing, one for recommendations. If they want to roll out a new, smarter recommendation algorithm, the team responsible just updates that recommendation service.
Without touching the video streaming or the billing system?
Exactly. They deploy their update, maybe test it on a small percentage of users first. The rest of the massive Netflix platform just keeps running smoothly. It lets them innovate constantly on specific features without risking the stability of the whole system.
So breaking things down really does make development faster, scaling easier, and the whole system just more robust, more resilient.
That's the essence of it. Smaller, focused pieces working together.
It's actually kind of amazing when you think about it, how this architectural approach provides the backbone for so many of the digital tools and experiences you rely on every single day. You know, the apps on your phone, the websites you visit, they just work most of the time. And this way of building things is a huge reason why.
It really is. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of these complex apps that feel so seamless, your streaming, your shopping, your social media, how many are silently relying on this microservice architecture underneath it all?
Probably most of the big ones, I'd guess.
It's pretty pervasive now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's become the standard way to build large-scale applications.
Well, this has been a really fascinating look under the hood. Thanks for breaking it down for us. And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully it sparks some curiosity about the hidden workings of the tech that shapes so much of our world.
Absolutely. And maybe it leaves you with a final thought to consider. This whole idea raises a broader question, really. In what other areas, maybe outside of software, in business, or even just in life, where else might breaking down really complex problems into smaller, independent, more manageable parts lead to, faster progress and maybe even greater resilience? Something to mull over.